AUB family. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Today's LEAP session will be under the title of Take These Broken Wings. So, if you recall, LEAP is it is a platform to share for physicians and healthcare professionals and anyone who works in the healthcare field to share their personal stories and perspectives from the from the lens of the patient. So today we're hearing from Dr. Arawi's experience, and as some of you may know, Dr. Arawi is the founding director of the Salim Al-Hus Bioethics and Professionalism Program at AUB-FM. She is one of the first clinical ethics consultants and certified healthcare mediators in the region. She's also the first to be a member and to serve on a number of significant international bodies, including the International Association of Bioethics, the American Society of Bioethics, the UK Clinical Ethics Network, the Lebanese National Advisory Commission on Ethics and in Life Science and Healthcare, the WHO COVID-19 Working Ethics Group, and to name just very few. She's also participated in a multitude of national, regional, international conferences and has several publications and contributions on bioethics. Her research interests span a wide array of topics in the areas of clinical ethics, biomedical ethics, humanitarian medicine, ethics and refugees, and ethics in conflict zones. However, today we're hearing a more personal perspective. So thank you, Dr. Arawi. You may take the floor. Hello.
Thank you, Diana, for your introduction. Yes, as you said, this time it's going to be rather a personal, if you want, a personal look at things. So today my talk is entitled "Take These Broken Wings," which is based actually on a song, if you're familiar with it. And it is about my journey through a long duration staying basically at home because of a comminuted calcaneal fracture. And I called it How a Comminuted Calcaneal Fracture Taught Me How to Fly, because I ended up seeing things from a totally different perspective. So let me make sure this is working. Yes. So let me start by saying, how did this happen? That was a sunny day in August 14. I had just finished my swimming, enjoying the summer. And something happened that forced me to jump from the roof, as you can see here in the building, to the balcony in order to be able to open the door that was closed on someone at home outside. It was locked and we didn't have the key anyway. And this resulted in, of course, in a calcaneal fracture. I landed on the feet and the head. My head hit to the wall. I had a fierce and ghastly sensation, particularly in the foot. I was advised to the doctor the next morning, since it was evening, to the ED. The reason why I waited for next morning is that we called and they said, it's okay, that's by tomorrow morning. So I went to the ED. It was confirmed that it is a severe fracture. Actually, the term that the physicians used was mtahbash al-calcaneus, which is, as you all know, a notoriously difficult fracture to heal. So I was discharged on a wheelchair, and the physician ordered zero pressure on the foot. So completely zero pressure. If anything, I had to rely on one foot. And he told me to use crutches. But they also needed to rule out spinal injury because it was a strong hit. Alhamdulillah, everything went well. And the physician was very kind, told me, if you want, I can also ask another orthopedic surgeon who happens to be visiting us at AUBMC to see if he also recommends surgery, and they actually did recommend surgery. So yes, of course, I went for a second opinion, like all patients do. And we usually say patients go shopping for opinions. No, asking for another opinion is in no way a sign of distrust in the physician. It is actually a need to reassure oneself that you are making the right decision. So I called my friend, who happens to be a war surgeon who deals a lot with fractured legs and feet. He too said he will consult another physician, and he consulted a well-known specialist in the UK who also said, you need an operation, but you need to choose a very good foot ankle specialist orthopedic surgeon, because this is quite a big operation. And I asked him, what if I do not do that operation? Because of, I was reluctant because of the situation, the COVID was everywhere. He told me it will not heal because there is no union of bone, and eventually you'll need a bigger operation. Now, even so, I decided to ask another doctor, Dr. PubMed and Dr. Google, that gave me more controversial answers. Some of the answers were, if you do the surgery, there is high chance of complications that will require another surgery and then another surgery and what have you. It's going to be endless. So as you can see, it was many consultations, be they all 9 or not, and I had to make a decision. Ironically, I opted out from the surgery. With all this, I decided not to do the surgery, and I told my physician that this is my decision, and he respected it and taught me what to do, told me what to do in order to take care of myself. He said it's going to take a long time to heal. Evidently, it's been since August, and I'm still not comfortable on my foot. It's still painful in many ways. He said it will be more precautions because you're not doing surgery. So I went home. I was instructed to use the crutches, zero pressure. So I was given all these instructions. But when I went home, new questions started imposing themselves. And it also reminded me the fact that oftentimes healthcare workers, we complain that patients visit us and then they, and I work with the healthcare team in clinical ethics consults. They visit the healthcare team, they ask the questions that they need to ask, and once they go home, they call again or want another meeting because they have new questions. It is normal, because once you're home, this is when you really realize that there's a new situation that one has to deal with. So again, I wasn't sure what crutches to use, and it never occurred to me that I needed to ask either the resident or the physician about what kind of crutches to use. Evidently, there were a number of crutches and different kinds of crutches. I didn't ask them how to use them, sitting, while sitting, while walking, while climbing stairs, since I happen to live in a 2-floor apartment. I didn't know what to do in order to change posture. What kind of home training should I do to avoid muscle atrophy? I had zero information about this. The other party probably assumed I knew. I didn't even think that I would have such questions. And of course, on YouTube, some contradicted others, although the sources were all credible, which is applied for patients, unfortunately. So as you can see, these are the options that were available. I started with this, the hand crutch. It didn't work. I simply couldn't move on it. So next thing was I bought this bicycle, if you wish. And it happened that after I bought it, I didn't know how to use it because it pressured my other knee. So when I told my physician, he said, don't use it, this has side effects. And the shop was kind enough to return it. So I used the walker. Using the walker for a zero heel, zero pressure also put a lot of strain on my shoulders. So eventually, my shoulder there was an inflammation in my shoulder, and I had to stop. And my last resort was this crutch that I didn't know how to use, and it was also painful. So I called a friend of mine, who happens to have a wheelchair, because wheelchairs now are maybe around $900. She happened to have a wheelchair, and I used the wheelchair for a month in a row. Eventually, I could move from one apparatus to another. Now, the funny thing is, I really didn't know what to do. So at the ED, I was given this wrap that turns into a hard wrapping, as if it's something that will hold my leg, but you can move it. So it's not جافسين, يعني, as we say. But it didn't work. I didn't know if I have to sleep with it all day long or not. Then I got these boots that are very helpful, but that increase atrophy. At night, I didn't know what to sleep, so I Googled. I found this apparatus that keeps your heel away from hitting the bed, so I also bought it. And then I Googled, and I decided later, eventually, when things become better, I will use that shoe that you see, that very elegant shoe that you see. So there was pain from the fracture, of course, but I also had severe right shoulder pain, which triggered severe migraines. So this is just to tell you how one thing leads to another. I called the doctor. Calling the doctor was not an option, particularly for me, maybe because the doctor is my colleague, and I don't want to burden them with calls as if I'm abusing the relationship. So I used to delay asking any questions. So I called a friend of mine from physical therapy, who gave me instructions and warned me from muscle atrophy. So the pain increased in my shoulder, and in my right heel, because I was most probably pressuring it. So I had the personal decision to revisit the ED. I felt something was wrong. So I went to the ED. We did scans and X-ray. This is not it, by the way. And there was a non-displaced fracture of the inferior aspect of the calcaneal tuberosity, subcutaneous edema in the right foot. And I ended up with two feet that I cannot use properly. So it was a real hassle. And add to it, it turned out that I had an avulsed bony fragment of the shoulder. The ED doc advised the use of arm sling. I refused because with an arm sling with two legs that I cannot walk, it's going to be impossible for me to do anything. And by character, I'm an independent person. I didn't want to burden anyone. So I made the choice to suffer through this and take whatever medication I need to take to alleviate the pain. So to me, it was like Kafkaesque metamorphosis from one situation to another. I couldn't move my left leg at all without triggering awful pain. My leg became a stranger to me. It became an object over which I have no control anymore. Of course, I was happy to have someone to lend me the wheelchair, but not everyone has that chance. And perhaps out of indignation, and patients do stupid things, and usually we tell them, yeah, oof, why did you do that? Perhaps out of indignation, the first thing I did when I returned home is have a bath on my own, on the wheelchair. And I'm not sure if I was actually trying to tell myself something. And I realized that I was metamorphosing from a calm and composed person into a mess of indignation and worry. I'm independent and a responsible agent about almost everything. And all of a sudden, I'm dependent on others for simple things like just, I need a cup of coffee. So I couldn't go to the kitchen, fix myself a cup of coffee. I had to ask for everything. And time was no longer quantificational. Weeks felt like eternities. A week would be an eternity. An hour would be, I don't know how long. And in all fairness, to ask for assistance is uncomfortable. But on the bright side, I also learned that it's okay to be disorganized. I ended up having everything I need around me, while usually I'm quite an OCD with cleanliness and order. So that's one thing that I learned to do. Stairs were out of the question. So regular chores were out of the question. Feeling of burdening others to do anything for me was terrible. Although I don't say it, because of course the other is going to tell me, la, it's okay, but it felt very harsh on me. I had to relocate to the floor below since climbing the stairs was not possible. And I took an appointment with my physician, and appointments eventually for physical therapy. Unfortunately, I had to reschedule them again and again because of lack of power. So no elevator, I could not take the stairs down. So I missed the bliss of independence. And it made me feel how heavy a load I am on my loved ones. This is me during the revolution, just to show you samples of how an active life can stop being active simply because of fracture. I became confined to one room for 4 months. I found myself having to contact my physician sometimes, although this is something that I didn't like to do. Things I used to do in a jiffy, I found myself having to kindly ask others to do them for me, like watering a plant, turning on the AC. Usually I see a plant that is thirsty, I go immediately, I plant it. I can't even do that anymore. So, and that's where healthcare workers often blame patients. They tell them, you should not do that. Why did you do it? But I realized that I began doing things that I know I should not be doing. So I started grabbing things in false postures because I didn't want to ask someone to do it for me. Bending from the couch and stretching too much to get another. And there were times when my walking aids were not near me. Instead of calling, I would crawl on the ground to go wherever I want. So things that we are not supposed to be doing that will probably aggravate our situation or add other burdensome events to our health. We know we should not do them, but our dignity just make us do them. So I was confined in this room, as you can see. Unlike Mahmoud Fahmi's painting of this person sleeping on top of the world, my life, like my heel, became fractured as well. So I had to succumb to the fact that I cannot return to work for the foreseeable future. So everything became online. Home and work became one place, online, 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 which in itself is heavy. In itself, it's daunting. In itself, it is too much to handle. And a plethora of studies have been done on that. Relying on technology instead of face-to-face, knowing that I might be burdening my team. In that case, it's Diana and Tala, and I thank you again, but I had no other choice. I knew that I was calling them every now and then, sending a WhatsApp message, sending them emails. I felt that they can tell me, oh, it's too much, we have already a lot to do, but there was nothing else I could do. I had to rely on them. I hated myself for doing this, but I knew that work has to continue. And between brackets, they were and still are tremendously helpful and an awesome family, I might add. With time, when I progressed from wheelchair to crutches, I realized how difficult these are and the pain they cause to the right hip and the shoulder. So the other hip became extremely painful. My shoulder became extremely painful because it changes your position when you walk. I started doing physio and then it started raining. And crutches and rain do not tango, so I stayed home. Even if I had physiotherapy, I had to cancel and reschedule with the pain of having to call again, please reschedule my appointment. I also realized more practically that this country does not bother ensuring automatic doors, elevators, etc. for people who cannot actually walk on their own. They are on a wheelchair or they use crutches. We are simply not equipped, which is horrific. But again, I also realized that people around me, at least some of them, were kind enough to offer help if need be. That was enough to fill my heart. This kindness was very impressive. So this is me from going from floor to floor, assisting my colleagues in their work, giving talks, even spending hours doing watching a surgery with my colleagues. I had to do nothing but stay home, talk to screens, and work from my office at home. I was known to be the caregiver, the ground activist, the one in charge. As you can see, all these things had to stop. So everything in me psychologically has changed. I couldn't drive, I couldn't garden, I couldn't walk. Simple things like washing a cup of coffee all became a one day I will plan. It was me planning all day and yalla. And sometimes I will be able to do that. Sometimes I'm going to be able to brush my teeth when standing on my feet, not on the wheelchair. It was a dream. So the journey is not physical only. We are not suspended in space as patients. An incident is never an alone happening since everything comes wrapped in a package, as I'm sure you all know. Sitting alone again all day, because everyone is at work, paved the way to philosophical explorations, which at times led to anxiety. So I started thinking about things that have to do with metaphysics, with life after death, with the reality of things that are too daunting to think about. And studies tell us that psychological sequelae are common after long bone fractures and include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. And I used to tell myself, you have to play normal. The other person does not know what you are going through, which perhaps exacerbated things because I kept on smiling. I kept on showing a high spirit and believing that things will be fine. But it's daunting when you have to put two different faces. And I try to convince myself that you have to move on and be stoic about matters, because precisely people already have enough on their plates. One thing that was good, though, is I had ample time to read, okay? And this is from a book that I loved and that related to the situation. It's not the Humanism and Terror, it's another one. It says about a patient, the things she missed most, she told me, were her friendships, privacy, and purpose of her days. It seems we've succumbed to a belief that once you lose your physical independence, a life of worth and freedom is simply not possible. And you do get to feel that, whether we like it or not. As Franz Kafka said in his superb book, The Metamorphosis, I cannot make you understand. I cannot make anyone understand what is happening inside of me. I cannot even explain it to myself. You just feel there's a bundle of feeling and sensations and ideas and thoughts inside of you. You can't explain them to yourself. You cannot explain them to others. You don't want to burn others with them. So it becomes a vicious circle, so to speak. 7 months later, more than half a year, my physician told me, forget, you cannot wear sandals anymore. You cannot wear boots. You cannot wear high heels. I could not still go to physiotherapy because of several rainy days. And 7 months later, my pain lingers on. So it's mission off. It's just a fracture. I used to believe, it's just a fracture. Now, let me look at the opposite side of the quote. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and not that immediate, in all fairness. Okay? You need time to appreciate that. Lying helpless, awaiting the medical team to assess you can be daunting. It's not shame. It's a feeling of, okay, what's going to happen now? Are they going to be able to help? Will they be comfortable enough? And everyone is stressed because of the economic situation and COVID. How is it going to be? It's quite daunting. Decisions are not that easy to make, whether to do the surgery or not. And yes, I was seen by the resident. He was superb, frankly. But still, I sought the attending physician to come. I was waiting for the attending. Yani, we used to say, we complain they don't want residents, because not that they don't trust the resident, but they want the person who is supposedly the authority on this to come. And at times, though, although people were very kind, I could feel the pity in the eyes of others and being looked down on by society as an individual with a disability when I used to be on my wheelchair. And this too can become too painful for people. So I thought about these people, how they live and how they suffer. And of course, patients need to be told in details what to expect. Something I will never forget, this is me when I had my x-ray, well, my hand at least. The team was always smiling. They gave me time. And what I truly appreciate is the importance of the team's availability and doctors' reply to my query mixed with the discomfort of calling. So that was superb. That helps the patient. So you can say I ended up looking at things from a bird's eye view, from a different angle. And I realized that to healthcare workers, it is a broken leg, but to patients, it is also a fractured autonomy and a broken life. This is a book that preaches optimism and going on. And at one point you read, you will come across obstacles in life, fair and unfair, and you will discover time and time again that what matters most is not what these obstacles are, but how we see them, how we react to them, and whether we keep our composure. This reaction determines how successful we'll be in overcoming or possibly thriving because of them. And this experience really showed me that a fracture is not a fracture. I learned that when patients ask for a second opinion, it does not mean they do not trust their doctor. It simply means they do not trust their own decisions. The patient needs to be told everything related to his injury and management. Many questions lurk in the head, but oftentimes they do not feel comfortable burdening the physician with them, or are not comfortable enough to discuss them. We think our patients know management details, but they simply might not know them. An injury or illness is not an event suspended in space. It affects the entire existence of the patient and also extends to his or her caregivers. So with broken wings, sometimes these make you free from the confines of theoretical misconceptions, and you see things from different perspectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. This is the first time we're actually hearing this very personal story, the full story from you. And I know it's been a very emotional journey as well. I mean, hearing it like this, I also wish maybe I wish there's something that we could have done more to help along the way. But I also think that the reflections that you offered were very eye-opening, and I hope that the audience feels the same as well. So if I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments, perhaps. There's Dr. Khater. You have your hand up.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Talia, for this interesting, heartbreaking, at the same time teaching experience. And I liked, I mean, the lessons for us in the audience as physicians are really important to learn and to engrave in gold somewhere to remember and to keep applying. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Beatrice. Really appreciate it.
So have anyone else there? There are some in the chat. There are a lot of thank yous. Yes, Joseph is thanking you for sharing such a vulnerable experience. And we also have thank yous from Lama and Diane.
So I thank them all, and I guess there are no questions. I understand.
If anything, I think it'll make us think about some things ourselves, definitely, and it will trigger some self-reflection as well.
Yes, yes.
That's for sure.
Thank you very much, Diana. It's a pleasure being part of the LEAP seminars, and at your service.
Thank you very much. So if there's no one else who'd like to say anything, I think we can wrap up. Oh, okay, it seems. Okay. Thank you very much again. Thanks for attending, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Arawi, for the time and your honesty and the transparency as well.
Thank you, Diana. Bye-bye.
Bye.